Yo, what's going on, you guys? Now, today we're taking a look at a little bit of an older Transformers comic and one that I think I might have accidentally thrown away. That's right, we're taking a look at the prequel comic to War for Cybertron. Now, War for Cybertron is easily one of my favorite Transformers video games of all time. That and Fall of Cybertron, the series is undeniably great, and I hope that eventually they remaster them because I would love to replay them with modern day graphics. And hell, I just want to get back into the multiplayer because it was one of the smoothest multiplayers that I've ever played in my entire life. Now, when War for Cybertron first came out, I was obsessed with it. I could not stop playing it. It was so gritty, so dark, and I loved the representation of the civil war between the Autobots and the Decepticons. But when I finished it, all I wanted was more to the story. And, we didn't have Fall of Cybertron come out right away. So there was a little bit of a lull. I think it was like 2 years before we got the sequel. And in the meantime, I just wanted to absorb more information. I wanted to know, how did this war actually start? Because we get to see a little bit of that in the video game. Fortunately, they came out with a complete novel. It was Transformers Exodus. So I rushed to the bookstore. I picked it up. I think I read it in like a day, and it really highlighted the politics behind what was going on Cybertron that would eventually lead to Megatron and Optimus Prime hating each other's guts. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure I did have a copy of this comic. I just don't ever remember actually reading it. I'm pretty confident that it was a pre-order bonus through GameStop. I don't know if that was like country specific or whatever, but I can just imagine that I probably came home, looked at the comic, threw it in the trash, turned on War for Cybertron, and played that for endless hours. Because why the heck would I want to read a comic when I just got a brand new game? And don't worry, I already know it's probably not one of the best decisions that I've ever made, but I never claimed to be perfect. So go ahead, feel free to roast me in the comments for my terrible lack of judgment. I'm a big boy, I can handle it. And while you guys do that, we're going to take a look at the prequel comic for War for Cybertron. Cybertron, the robotic home planet of the Transformers, is in unrest. Violence has started to break out due to a difference of opinions between the ruling class and the labor class. The tension is reaching a fever pitch. As such, the High Council has called a meeting to discuss the disputes with two of the labor class leaders. In the High Council Tower of Iacon, a meeting with the High Council is in progress. They are gathered to discuss something of the gravest consequence. High Counselor Halogen addresses the council. It is said that the former gladiator, now known as Megatron, is responsible for the disappearance of Sentinel Prime. The High Council, under penalty of confinement and further justice, commands the Cybertronian of Kaon, known as Megatron, to present himself. Contrail confirms Megatron's identity and questions what authority he has to claim this name. Megatron looks to Contrail and responds, "By my own, and no other." Megatron then steps forward and the High Council commands him to bring his testimony before them, to be truthful and complete, and Megatron begins his testimony. In the beginning, he had no name. None of them did. They spoke to each other down in the mines and the smelters by electronic signature. They indicated each other by function and assigned each other nicknames. He was D-16, named for the sector of the mine he conducted demolition operations, until he saw his first match in the gladiator pits. That is where he first learned how life was for the lower castes, that the High Council never took a nanoclick to consider. Each Cybertronian who came to him had seen more Cybertronians die themselves than the total of the audience in the gallery observing him. Megatron continues that they decided that they had worth. Together, the lower caste, the bots who die in the subsurface mills and factories, creating all of the things the bots above take for granted. They learned that they were individuals by facing off against each other in the gladiator pits, in Slaughter City and Kaon. But how did they know they were individuals? They knew they were individuals because as they killed their opponents in the ring, they saw in death the realization that they were individuals. It was in killing they understood life. Being one of the most disposable of commodities, a gladiator whose remains are thrown into the junk pile, to be picked over and scavenged, the healthy pieces sold off to brokers in Iacon and Crystal City. In being disposable, they discovered that they had value. Someone would pay them for what they did. Someone would cheer when they killed, and roared in anger when they died. Megatron looked sternly at the High Council, hoping his testimony would connect with their sparks. So if their lives had worth, even to others just as worthless as them, then they had the right to names, and a right to be heard. Megatron then points to Orion Pax and thanks him. He thanks him for persuading the Council to hear the voices of Cybertron's downtrodden. Drivetrain remarks that he should also be thankful to Alpha Trion before asking if he's implicating his fellow Cybertronians in the terrorist actions claimed by his followers. The invasion of the Alta Hex station, the kidnapping of Sentinel Prime, the bombing of 6 lasers over Cybertron, the destruction of the armaments plant at Blaster City, and the attack on the smelting pool estates at Polyhex. Drivetrain asked Megatron if he would have him believe that he had nothing to do with any of these acts carried out by the bots who identified themselves as Decepticons, and specifically proclaimed their allegiance to him. Megatron brushes off these accusations by stating that what other bots might have said means nothing to him, but if the term Decepticon is to be laid at his feet, he accepts it. Sometimes deception is necessary, when those who should listen to the truth will not. Halogen thanks Megatron for his candor, but now they must hear from the guilds. High Counselor Sigil speaks on behalf of the guilds of Cybertron, and explains that for thousands of orbits and more, the guilds have guided Cybertron. Without the guilds, there would be no civilization. There would be no space bridges, no Hydrax Plateau spaceport, no moon bases, and there would be no Teletran 1, and no city of Iacon to house it. Can Megatron, this criminal, undermine what Primus himself decreed when he created this planet? If every criminal can upend what they endlessly labor to maintain, then he fears for the future and for Cybertron itself. Halogen thanks Sigil for his words, and then asks Orion Pax, a clerk of the Hall of Records, to present himself at the podium. Orion steps forward and addresses the council. He asks for his fellow Cybertronians to hear him, that Megatron speaks harshly but true. If he is angry, it is anger born of love for an ideal and spark deep pain at their failure of that ideal. The recent attacks were savage and inexcusable, yet they were only symptoms. The unrest spreading across Cybertron will not stop with these attacks, because it is the natural expression of a people who for too long have been held in check. Their potential forever unrealized because of the false constraints of caste and guild. It is natural for a being born with a spark to know that it should be free to change as it wishes. Only dead things stay the same. No Cybertronian is simply the mechanical sum of his parts. Each of them contains a living spark that makes them who they are and awakens them to the possibility of freedom. One bot's freedom can never be given or taken away by another. Orion continues that they had defeated the Quintessons, with the High Counselors fighting alongside the Smelters and Data Clerks. But for what? Only to enslave themselves by castes and guilds? He states that order achieved through force can never be a true peace. There can be no true peace through tyranny. The time has come for all Cybertronians to be united again. They need a leader of the free, a new prime who recognizes that they are autonomous robots, owned by no one but themselves, masters of their own fates. Today, all free robots break their welds of oppression. Today, they are Autobots. And he declares that a free spark will never stand to be oppressed. Orion then calls for the need of a new leader, a new prime, and his speech rallies many supporters within the room who begin to cheer for his Autobot movement. The cheers grow louder as more Cybertronians join in, but Halogen calls for order. The room goes silent, and Halogen begins to speak. He agrees that Cybertron is troubled, and that, as Orion Pax has said, Cybertron requires a new prime, and this new prime must find the Matrix of Leadership. The Matrix of Leadership is on Cybertron, though it has not been seen in many billions of cycles. But according to Alpha Trion, if found, it could lead to a new age for Cybertron, and he tells Orion that if he can find it, he will have the right to claim it. Halogen renames Orion Pax Optimus Prime, and states that he must see them through the turbulent times that are to come. Orion attempts to decline the power offered to him, feeling unworthy of such an honor, and Megatron calls it a fine show of humility that his friend, Orion Pax, asked for him to come here under the banner of friendship and trust, when what he really wanted was power. Orion denies this and tries to appeal to Megatron by reminding him that his beliefs are in a free Cybertron, and that in its darkest hour, Cybertron will find someone to lead it to a new age. Orion pleads with Megatron by calling him brother, hoping that he believes him, but Megatron scoffs at his words, and sarcastically says, "Optimus Prime, does it not have the ring of leadership?" Megatron turns towards the gallery, and asks them if they would fall into place behind this so-called Prime, and many in the crowd respond with a resounding no. Megatron looks towards Prime, mockingly calls him brother, and tells him that they do not want his control, they want to be free. Orion tries to deny any intention to control them, but Megatron hears his words as lies. If the High Council calls Orion Prime, then he defies them. He will lead the Decepticons and fight for the freedom of all Cybertronians. But Halogen has heard enough and tries to silence Megatron. In retaliation, Megatron reveals his fusion cannon and permanently silences Halogen with a powerful blast. The High Council guards rush in to protect their new prime, but Optimus orders them to stand down, inadvertently reassuring Megatron of his accusations towards Optimus. He then warns Optimus that his gladiators would not hesitate to fire on him at his command, even if he is a prime. But Optimus is not intimidated by this threat, and Megatron orders his Decepticons to stand down, for now. Optimus declares to Megatron that he would continue to value his friendship. Megatron might have as well before Optimus betrayed him, and Megatron then warns Optimus about how many Decepticons await him in the Badlands and in the subsurface levels of Cybertron. But Optimus says that he is ready to do what needs to be done no matter how many Decepticons Megatron drags up from the pits. Megatron then locks optics with Optimus, and declares that no matter how many Autobots he finds, the Decepticons will meet them, and vows to claim the Matrix for himself. As the Decepticons roll out, the two former brothers say their farewells. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. Great, now all I want to do is play War for Cybertron. But you can't, Derek, because it's not available. I think I've got my 360 kicking around here somewhere, maybe even a copy of the game. I'm going to have to set it up later. But let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this comic. Don't forget to like this video and sub to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys next time.